former student body president Davis High, and Cal Mike Man. Yeah. Okay. This is wonderful. You know, last year I was supposed to have a gigantic retirement party, and probably most of you would have been there, but it was canceled. So I was telling Leslie earlier today, can this just be my retirement party? Okay. And I hope we have enough alcohol for you. You know, Leslie and I are Asian, so we don't drink, but most of you are big drinkers, so we're there. And so please do drink whatever we have, because we don't drink leftovers and stuff. So I count on people like the Bernards that finish the leftovers. Okay. So many of you know me, and we've been friends for a long time, and you know, I love extemporaneous speaking and stuff. Much easier for me than writing a book, which is very, very hard. But I have so many important things I want to say. I actually took some notes. I normally don't take notes at all when I give talks and stuff. Rich Folio knows that. You know, like John, he didn't prepare again, and there are 1,000 doctors. Anyway, so first and foremost, I just want to express my deep gratitude for every single person in this room. Lisa, hello, how are you? I love you. Okay. All of you have been so important to me and my family. I think there's one guest, a woman friend of a very good friend of mine who I did not know from before, if Anna's here. But anyway, otherwise I know all of you super well, and you're a big part of the fabric of our lives. And this book about, you know, pearls of wisdom, I mean, so many of you embody all these things, and you're just my favorite people on the planet. So thank you for being who you are, and for being part of the Chuck Posse and stuff. And I want you to know that all of you have either directly or indirectly contributed to the content and the goodness of this book. I think as you read this book and you experience this book, you'll see yourselves in there, and I hope that this book meets you where you are in your life and stuff. I want to thank the Bowen family, Bob and Kate and Spencer. Can you all stand up? Is Bob here? Big Bob here? Are they still married? Is it not? Yeah, Kate, where? Does everybody see Kate? Where are you, Kate? Kate, thank you so much. You are lovely. Kate is the Bowens are our host today, and I believe this is the first post-pandemic event at Stonegate, so we're all trying to be very well behaved here and stuff. I hope all of you are vaccinated. If you're not, can you put on a mask or something like that? And I think we're most of us are good against the variants and stuff. And don't worry about Delta, because after Delta, there's going to be Gamma and Beta and all that. So that's just what viruses do. So just kind of hang in there and eat your vegetables, and don't get constipated, and you'll be fine. Okay. So the thing about the Bowens is that, you know, first, I love this town. We moved back here in 1996. Leslie went to college here, and when we left here, we said, oh, we'll never move back to Davis. That's such a fake town. But then later in life, we were looking for fakes, so here we are and stuff. But I feel like there are three main drivers that make Davis the marvelous place it is, and for many of you it's home. And those three things are UC Davis, okay, the Davis Enterprise, and the Bowen family. So, Kate, thank you so much. You're wonderful. You know, Kate taught in the schools, and Bob runs all the city events. And now, even when he's retired, he's putting up all the Christmas lights for everybody and stuff. And then Spencer, student body president, and just public servant in Woodland now. He's going to make Woodland skyrocket past Davis anytime soon. Okay, so anyway, so you should buy property in Woodland. Okay. All right, that's just my real estate tip, although I never take a real estate tip from me. Okay. I want to let you know, my late father, James, for some reason, years ago, I stumbled upon his doctoral dissertation, which was very long, and I'm not really a reader, so it's amazing I wrote a book and stuff. But there was a phrase in one of the opening paragraphs, and it referred to man's predicament and the means of its resolution. And I read that, and it just stuck in my mind, and I just kept ruminating on that, like, what is man's predicament, and what is the means of its resolution? And that's really what this book is all about. So I think that our shared predicament as human beings, all of us, our shared predicament is like our suffering and our mortality. I don't want to depress any young people here, but you know, you get past 50 and you think about these things a lot. You know, like you're constipated, you're thinking, is that colon cancer or is I just not eating enough vegetables? So anyway. But anyway, as for the means of its resolution, that is much more complicated. So the predicament's pretty clear. It's all the funky things that happen to us in life, you know, and the fact that we die. But the means of its resolution is much more complicated. And Pearls from the Practice of Life is a book about the means of its resolution. And, you know, what are the pearls of wisdom related to the thoughts, the self-talk, the decisions, and the habits that not only help us cope with our struggles, but lead our best lives. And I think our best lives are lives filled with joy and meaning. And like I talk about joy and meaning in the book, and I'm glad to give you the nutshell thing if you ever want to hear it. So this book, it's a compilation of everything that I've learned from listening to other people's stories, all right? It's really nothing, if you read the book, it's nothing I thought of on my own, but I feel like I'm a sponge for people's stories about struggling and adapting and emerging from their pain, just new and improved, better versions of themselves. And many of you have inspired me with how you've done that. So as Chris Jensen, can you please stand, my brother-in-law? Okay, this is Chris, I love Chris. Very good to my sister and stuff, Carol and stuff, but so he's one of my book editors, and he read the book, and he said, what he told me is that these stories of positive adaptation, quote, can serve as blueprints for the rest of us as we navigate life struggles and try to make something meaningful out of our existence. And you know, so he gave me that feedback, you know, in his edits, and I thought, yeah, like I'm just telling all these stories, and I hope that the people who read it, they just see these as potential blueprints as they try and navigate their own lives. Another goal of the book is to impart in all of you a sense of urgency about figuring these things out. I mean, I know that many of you think, oh yeah, you know, my parents lived to the 80s and 90s, I have plenty of time to do this, but I would tell you as a family physician that while it may be true that you will make it to your 80s or 90s, first of all, those older years aren't so great anyway, okay? So you made it, but you may not necessarily like it, okay? And so that's one reason to figure it out sooner. The second reason is that statistically speaking, you probably will make it to something like that, but all the physicians in the room and everybody in the room whose family member, their life has been cut short by whatever, right? Sudden, massive, fatal heart attack, huge debilitating stroke, a new onset of a progressive neurologic condition. I mean, it doesn't have to be sudden death, it can just be the onset of something really miserable that lasts for a long time. So either way, okay, you want to try and figure these things out sooner. I'm sorry about the sunlight. I prayed to God for no afternoon sun, but and my dad was a minister, so sometimes I have a connection on things like that, but sometimes it's just the law of the universe, okay? So I apologize. All right, so yeah, so the sense of urgency thing, right? Okay, so I created the framework for this book during the last 15 years of my medical career, where I spent a lot of time giving presentations to patient groups and healthcare provider groups about wellness. And at one point, I thought I was really cranking out good stuff, but I was afraid that I was going to forget these topics and lectures and programs I developed. So I started writing them all down on this little private blog called Pearls from the Practice of Life. You know, if you Google has these free blogs called blogspot.com. You should use it. It's like free website. So anyway, I kept this thing called Pearls from the Practice of Life, and I would just write down all these programs I was leading. So, and I said to myself, when I retire, I'm going to go back to this blog and all the topics, and I'm going to write a book. So basically, I retired last summer and stuff, and then I spent 6 months sort of piecemeal writing the chapter to this book. And one day I looked up at my wife Leslie, and I said, I think I'm done. Right, and so that's the book. Okay. So anyway, the topics over the years, they naturally fell into these 6 buckets, which I called sections. And then when I finally got a book editor, they said, oh, they're not called sections, they're called parts. Anyway, I called them sections, and they are first things first, the work world, lofty goals, getting things done, struggles in all caps, because that was the biggest one by far. And then finally, doctor stuff. And who's had a chance to read the book? Or you just bought it and just be nice to me, but you're not really going to read it, but it's okay. So the book can be used in multiple ways. You can read it start to finish, and it makes total sense, okay? Because the first chapter starts with birth, and the last one ends with death, so it makes total sense. But I also wrote it so that each and every chapter can stand alone as like a daily devotional or thought or something like that. And then I had some people review it, and you know, like literary people, and one guy said, yeah, you know, this is not the sort of book that somebody's going to buy and they're going to try and read it in 2 days because it's so good. It's like they're going to buy it, and they're going to read it, and then they're going to kind of go back to it again over and over again in their life, kind of like a reference book. And then Bruce Galladay, who's a local writer, I just love it, he's one of my editors too, and he goes, you know, I've read this several times, and every time I read it, I learn something new. And my thought was, I think he has progressive neurologic disease or something like that. Anyway, but if he doesn't, I'm hoping that like the book is deeper and richer than I even thought it was and stuff. Okay, my wife wants me to let you know that The chapters, they're intentionally dense and abbreviated versions of much longer and deeper messages and stuff, but I really just wanted to plant the seed of these thoughts in your mind. And also, I was Googling this, after I finished the book, I was Googling like self-help books, and it turns out that self-help books should have 45 to 50,000 words, and mine has 48,000, right? So I'm right in there. So I think it's the appropriate length, right? John Lesquaw, New York Times bestselling author, did you really read it? He wrote this lovely endorsement for the book jacket, but I'm not sure he read it. He basically said, "I'll do anything to help you be successful," including like, you know, a false endorsement and stuff. Anyway, and then, you know, you're probably wondering who this is for. Who's this book for, right? So in my mind, the intention, this book is for anybody who lives and breathes, right? I think it would be especially good for a high school graduate going off to college, trying to figure out, you know, who they are in the world. I think it would be lovely for a young professional woman, my daughter Kelly, 26 and stuff, like trying to figure out, you know, what's my place in the universe? Like how do I fit into this whole cosmos and stuff? I think it'd be lovely for young married couples who think they have to get divorced, you know, like, hey, this is not what I thought it was. Well, you should just read the book, okay? And I'm pretty sure you'll stay together. Just to normalize the horrible experience for you. I think it's a lovely book for mid-career people, because a lot of people mid-career, midlife, it's sort of like, oh my God, like they have a midlife crisis because they're like 50 or 60 and they're thinking, like, what is my life about? And then they buy a sports car and they start wearing big gold bling and stuff, and they get, you know, hair implants on their chest, the whole deal. So it's good for them. And then it's good for people like me, like I retired last year, and then, you know, one of the thoughts a retired person has, Mike Chun, that in a few years for you, is like, what am I going to do with the, you know, rest of my life, which is very brief, right? And it's funny, as you get older and your horizon gets shorter, you start, you know, thinking about things like in a very focused, concentrated. Lisa's sort of shaking her head like, oh yeah, okay, you're right. I was just trying to resonate with you on that point, just you exactly, and you nodded your head, so I'm very happy about that. And then, if you're elderly and frail, which we're all going to be there if we're lucky enough to get there, I'm going to borrow a phrase from Atul Gawande, who wrote this in Being Mortal. You're really just struggling, you know, in a state of dependence to maintain the value of existence. And if you've ever had a chronic condition or you've taken care of an older family member, this whole issue of struggling, you know, to maintain some sort of joy and meaning while you're so dependent and frail, it's a big challenge and stuff. All right, so I think that if there's an overall theme to the book, it's that we live in a fallen world. And you know, I was voted the most optimistic person in my graduating class, so it's not like I'm a negative person, okay? But my take on life, okay, is that we live in a fallen world. And it's just filled with prevailing, I mean, these incredibly strong prevailing ways of thinking that are so incredibly faulty, but I don't see people talking about that or writing about it. So it's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book. But one of the prevailing ways of thinking and doing that is really faulty. It's the whole focus on the individual pursuit of fortune and fame. And you know, I think I write in the book that, you know, we raise our hands to God on Sunday, you know, but the rest of the week we just kind of pursue things for ourselves. It's just this funky way we live. So, but based on the stories my patients and colleagues have told me, and then my review of the literature, I just throw that in there because as a doctor I'm supposed to review the literature. I really don't. And my own personal experiences, which really bias how I think, I just feel like a lifelong focus on me and the acquisition of things, it just leads to loneliness and misery. And I had this great fortune in my career as a family doctor to have many end-of-life discussions with people, and I never, ever had anybody say, you know, I wish I had made more money or had been more famous. And if people at the end of their life have regrets, it's about not finding their meaning or purpose or investing in the relationships that were meaningful to them. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, I heard that over and over and over again, but like, you know, nobody talks about it. You don't read about it. They never talk about it on talk shows because it's too boring. It's not a soundbite, but that's just the way it is, right? But somehow, you know, we're so disconnected in our society and nobody listens to their elders anymore. It just doesn't get passed down. So I just hope that this book helps to do that. So the introduction of the book describes the interment ceremony of my Uncle Art, who was a solo practice general internist in Fresno. He had a great life and great career, and it wasn't a sad funeral because, you know, he was 85 and he had a good life. But but my late father was a minister, and at the graveside, his comment was, the sad thing about life is not dying, for we all must die. Because sometimes I think, we're at a funeral, we think, oh, it's just sad they died. Well, it's not sad if you die when you're old. Like, you're going to die, okay? Nobody escapes that. But he says the saddest thing about life is wasting the time you have. It was 105 degrees in Fresno. It's god awful. It's miserable. That's such that's a mic drop moment, right? Like that's the sort of thing. I think I put it in the book that if Twitter existed, like in that year, 2010 or whatever, that would have been #truth or something like that. It's just it had a huge impact on my life. So chapters 1 through 69 of this book, by the way, there are 69 chapters, and I know that 69 is not a great number to have a number of chapters. And I tell my wife, I tell my wife, I'm done, and it's got 69 chapters. She goes, well, you can't have 69 chapters. And I said, yeah, I know what it means, but I'm really struggling to add a 70th chapter. And then, I wrote some comments about how golf is a great game, like in the thanks and acknowledgements, but I couldn't really make a chapter out of it. So anyway, it's 69. Okay, so there are some good things about 69. I don't know. It's not all bad. So anyway. So chapters 1 through 69, it's all about how not to waste time in your preciously short life. That's what the entire book